get started, we sometimes do have a few people join a little bit later on as the session goes, but we are at 1:30, quite a lot to get through today, so we'll get started. So today's session, and before we get into the detail, we will do some quick introductions from the prospect change side. But the session we're focusing on today is why so many PMOs fail and how to avoid those same mistakes. So it's a deep dive into what good looks like, the reason for failure, and how to avoid that or fix it if you find yourself in that situation. So before we get into that though, some quick intros, like I said, from the PC side. So I'm Ruth Geddes, one of the co-founders of Prospect Change, and I know some familiar faces on the session today, which is familiar names. Do feel free to join via camera if you'd like to. Equally, feel free to sit back, enjoy your breakfast and just listen. But yeah, lovely to see you all today. Prospect Change has been around for almost 4 years now. We're coming up to our fourth birthday, which is very exciting to us. But before I get into all of that detail, I'm going to hand over to my friend and business partner, Jen.
Good morning. Thank you, Ruth. Good morning, everyone. And yeah, it'd be great to see you all if you feel like putting your cameras on, but equally no pressure. I'm Jen Anderton, co-founder of Prospect Change. Work with Ruth, Dev and Asha. These webinars have been going on for almost a year now. It was something that we committed to at the start of the year, and we've really enjoyed doing them. So we hope you do too. I'll pass on to Asha.
Morning, guys. So I'm Asha. I've met a couple of you before. I'm the social media and engagement coordinator for Prospect Change. And yeah, I work with Ruth, Jen and Dev. I really enjoy these webinars. So I hope you guys too. And it's really nice to see you all again. I'll pass over to Dev.
Hi, guys. I'm Dev, and I'm a business and product support officer at Prospect Change, and I help to on the delivery of the academy, which goes at Bradford College. And unfortunately, I don't know many of you, but it's a great time to get to know each other. I've seen some Italian email addresses, and I'm pretty happy about that because I was born and brought up in Italy. So it would be nice to get to know them. Thank you. I'll pass it down to Reese and Jen again.
Thanks, Dev. Thanks, team. And yeah, lovely to see you. Hiya, Joe. Good to see you again. Good morning. In terms of how we'll run the session today, so feel free to ask any questions that you'd like to in the chat. I'll be leading on the session in terms of doing all the talking, and Jen, Asha and Dev will reply to messages in the chat so you can have conversations there. And then we will have a breakout session to discuss the topic in a little bit more detail. First things first, though, I'm going to bring up the slides and we'll crack on. I'll talk you through the agenda. Now, can you see that okay?
We can.
Yeah, fabulous. Thanks, Jen. So why so many PMOs fail and how to avoid those same mistakes. A little bit about Prospect Change before we get started. Always nice to start with who Prospect Change actually is and what we do. So as I said, we're almost 4 years old. So we're coming into our preschool phase. It's still very much a startup and really loving bringing the value of PMO into organisations across the UK and beyond. We've been very lucky. We've had the opportunity to work with organisations pretty much in every sector. And we're incredibly passionate about bringing the strategic value of a PMO to organisations and enhancing those tactical PMOs or bringing from scratch that brand new strategic value. Something else we're super passionate about is putting PMO on the educational map. Now, Dev mentioned this, he leads our work with Bradford College and other academy areas. One of the things that we do struggle with within PMO, and anyone that's worked within this space will resonate, I'm sure, is the varying standards across PMO and the lack of professionalisation and formal career route from education into employment. It's missing. People stumble into PMO if it's a career for them, like it is myself. I love what I do, but I stumbled across it, and it's a story for many that work within PMO. There's very few intentional PMOers that started out from education. I don't think I haven't. I've never met anybody except Asha and Dev, and we put them on that educational path. which is super exciting. So we're very passionate about working with providers of education in order to educate around what is PMO, how does it help organisations develop and grow, how is it essential in that space, and how do we formally get it on the map. So there are two missions that we work really hard on, and yeah, we've made really good headway in here at Prospect Change, which is very exciting. We specialise in 3 key areas: PMO as a service, PMO partner, and PMO training. PMO as a service is very much taking the burden of PMO enhancement or PMO establishment from an organisation and leading on that. So creating that vision in collaboration with them and designing it and implementing it. The PMO partner is more of a kind of, we refer to it as a retainer service pretty much. So it's working side by side from anything from 1 day a month with a client all the way up to full time, although most of our PMO partner assignments do tend to be more sort of 2-3 days a week maximum. And that time can be used for anything that the client feels fit. It means that they've got that speciality on hand for whatever they need, whether it's some troubleshooting, whether it's process management, whether it's any training. They've got their their specialist consultant on hand to support them in any way they need. And then PMO and project management training is very much in line with the work that we do in the academy, but this is bespoke training in order to upskill individuals so that they themselves can become specialists within the area of PMO and less dependent on external consultants like ourselves. So there are 3 areas of speciality. And in terms of what we will cover today, if you've got any questions, of course, on any of those areas, feel free to reach out. We love to collaborate with people. So if you are a consultant, Jonah, we've had conversations, haven't we? If you're a consultant on the call and you'd love to explore how you can collaborate with Prospect Change so that we can really enhance the value we bring to clients and customers, please do reach out and we'd love to chat to you. But yes, on to today's subject. Why so many PMOs fail? We see it over and over again. PMOs that are struggling to bring value. And very sadly, when organisations are stretched with budgets, we see PMOs over and over again get either reduced significantly in terms of their FTE or removed altogether because they're struggling to bring or showcase the value for an organisation. So we're going to talk through what is the purpose of today's session. What should you walk away from today with? What do we talk about? What do we mean when we say value of a PMO? So what is our blueprint for what is a good PMO function, a good PMO capability? And then we'll do a deep dive into the 4 stumbling blocks. These are the 4 key areas that we focus on when enhancing or establishing a PMO, and the 4 key areas when troubleshooting a PMO. We refer to them as the 4 Ps: purpose, people, process, and platform. And then we're going to go into a group discussion. We'd love to hear your experiences and learnings across this subject. We love these group discussions. It's a really great opportunity to share those learnings and we can all learn from one another. I will just let you know, because you will see that this session is being recorded. Before we share this recording wider to anybody that's not on today's session, before they will get visibility of this recording, we do edit out the group discussion. So feel free to be as transparent as you'd like, because of course we're talking about experiences often from previous clients and contracts. None of that will be shared. The recording is always edited to remove the group discussion. And as always, we like to give away a freebie on one of our webinars. So I'll talk you through the freebie and then we'll close. So the purpose of today's session, the aim is for you to have a clear understanding of what defines PMO failure and success. And what does good look like? So what is the Prospect Change PMO blueprint for you to use as a benchmark for what good looks like within the space of PMO? You should have insight into the 4 major stumbling blocks that do either weaken or equally can strengthen a PMO, as well as practical ideas in order to strengthen your PMO in those 4 areas: purpose, people, process, and platform. And then you'll have a diagnostic tool as well to support in ongoing assessments and growth of your PMO or future PMOs that you support with. Ultimately, it's about walking away knowing what a high value PMO looks like, where yours may be vulnerable, and how to strengthen it so that it genuinely supports strategic delivery. So what is the PMO blueprint? So what do we mean when we say a good PMO? So ultimately, the first thing you have to do, of course, is define the purpose and the principles of a PMO. Now, the PMO exists, and I'm sure we'll all be in agreement here, to define and uphold the organisational standard for delivering change and enabling growth through exceptional project and programme management. We do this, we being the PMO, the standard blueprint of PMO, we do this by establishing and protecting the golden thread. That golden thread means every project or programme is connected to the change that it will deliver. That change that is being delivered is connected to a wider strategy roadmap, and then ultimately the vision that the organisation has for ongoing growth. We provide a single source of truth, enabling efficient and effective decision making. That's absolutely vital within a PMO. It enables decision makers to have the information they need at the time they need it, delivered in the right way so they can make the decision needed regarding the change that's being delivered. The PMO exists to support delivery teams to work consistently and effectively, reduces risk by spotting issues early, or the other way around actually, isn't it? It's reducing issues by spotting risks early and mitigating and managing them. The PMO creates a predictable rhythm across the portfolio. It makes the organisation feel safe. When you have a strong PMO, the organisation feels like its future is in a safe pair of hands. It's a wonderful feeling for an organisation to have. And a good PMO maximises value by ensuring profits deliver meaningful outcomes. There's a lot of debate going on at the moment, particularly on LinkedIn, around is a PMO a profit centre? Now, regardless of where you sit on that, and today is probably not the discussion, a day for that discussion, but the absolute guarantee is that regardless of whether it is or it is not a profit centre, it absolutely is a value-driven capability and function within an organisation. It should be driving forward value. And the principles of the PMO, ultimately, that we stand on, is that a PMO should be purpose over paperwork, consistency, and this is very important, with pragmatism. If you're not pragmatic, drive people bonkers. Insight over information, collaboration over control, evidence-based decisions, and value as being the anchor. Let's bring this to life a little bit further. So here we see the golden thread really brought to life. Delivery realises outcomes, which achieves objectives, delivering on strategy and taking organisation to the place of the vision. That's what you can see there in the pyramid. You plan down from vision to identify what delivery needs to take place, and then you manage and report up, and it's an ongoing plan down, manage up. So as I touched on, we have the vision. The vision defines organisational ambition to ensure the change agenda aligns with that ambition and keeps teams connected to the why. Why are we delivering this particular project? Why does this 3-month project truly matter? Well, if you've got a golden thread approach, you can see what the outcome of that 3-month project is going to deliver and why it's absolutely essential to the ultimate vision. Strategy is the roadmap that takes you from a current state to the future state, demonstrating what needs to change to make that vision a reality. Your objectives set the measurable indicators of success to define, track and report progress so an organisation stays on course. The outcomes describe and track the tangible changes each project will deliver on a project by project or programme by programme basis, and demonstrate how these changes, how these outcomes contribute to the wider objectives. And then delivery ultimately is to establish and assure project portfolio to clearly demonstrate which projects and programmes will deliver the outcomes needed. So rolling that up, delivery achieves outcomes, which achieves objectives, which achieves strategy, which achieves vision. The PMO is there and exists to define this golden thread and then to protect the golden thread throughout delivery. So projects will come across risks, they will come across uncertainties and will come across challenges. If the PMO is not there to help them through and to navigate through those challenges, that's when those projects end up off course, their scope changes, their budget increase, their benefit reduces. And before you know it, that project is no longer delivering the outcomes needed, which impacts the wider knock-on. It has that knock-on effect on the strategy and vision. If that happens more over and over and over with the projects, that's a lot of wasted projects, a lot of wasted money, and value isn't being realised. So your PMO is absolutely essential for that golden thread. So when Prospect Change talks about PMO, this is the sort of PMO we are talking about. And this is why we get really passionate about the value that a PMO brings to an organisation. When we talk about an operating model, unfortunately, we don't have time in today's session. It's not the topic of today's session, but it may be for a future one if the demand is there. When we talk about the operating model, we have 4 key areas: purpose, people, process, and platform. And whilst we don't have the time today to go into detail of what that operating model will look like, how the team functions, how those 4 areas truly connect to one another, roles, responsibilities, etc., we are focusing on these 4 key pillars. Purpose: the PMO exists to create value and give the organisation clarity about what it can expect from us. People: those doing the work within the PMO and how well they engage with those around and bring in everybody in a one-team mentality in a collaborative way. Process: it's those how we do what we do and how that's consistently and pragmatically applied internally within the PMO and externally for projects and programmes. And platform is the technology. Now, the vast majority of PMOs do not have actually a platform, a PPM tool and capability. But of course, if you're creme de la creme and you really want to get a great PMO that is very efficient and automated and saves a lot of time, then a platform is very important. And technology is vital when delivering anything, particularly in this day and age. So that is very important to consider as well. So there are our 4 key pillars that we will talk about today. And we're going to look at them as stumbling blocks, as well as what good looks like. So across purpose, people, process, and platform, in that order, let's get into it. We're going to look at 3 key areas. What does good look like? What happens when it goes wrong, or what does it going wrong look and feel like? And then how do we fix it? And please excuse me, I'm going to have a quick sip of my coffee. I've just had that brought up to me, which is very nice. Oh, there's nothing hits quite like the first sip of coffee in the morning, is there? Lovely. Right, what does good look like for purpose? Purpose gives the PMO its identity. It defines why the PMO exists, what it is here to achieve, and how it creates value for the organisation. When purpose is clear, this is what it feels like. The PMO is aligned to strategy, not just activity. When you truly talk about the purpose of a PMO, there is very little argument there that a PMO should stay within the tactical space. Any strategic leaders of an organisation who are truly invested in the growth and development of that organisation will agree that PMO needs to be strategic. And therefore, if its purpose is not to be strategic, I would encourage to continue having those conversations. It doesn't mean that it needs to be strategic overnight. It can be a roadmap to moving into a strategic space. It could start at tactical to prove some level of value, but it has to have a roadmap of enhancement to move it into the space of strategic. Everyone knows what to expect from the PMO. Leadership understand its value and champion it. And that is across the board. There is confidence in what the PMO stands for and why it matters. And that confidence is felt internally. As somebody who works within the PMO, so often individuals that have worked within the PMO feel they have to apologise when asking for a report. I'm so sorry to ask for this, but could you possibly just update this risk log for me? I'm so sorry to ask this, but could you possibly just provide me the status report this week? There's none of that. You don't feel like you're apologising because you see the value that you bring, and people provide you with the information because they external also have that confidence in the value that the PMO brings. The PMO is considered essential for organisational growth. Collaboration is at the heart of the function. And this is a big one. This is a real sign of success. People seek out the PMO, not the other way around. So when within your PMO, you are finding that project managers, program managers, SMEs, business leads are coming to the PMO to say, look, I've got a problem, I've got a challenge, I've got a concern, or I've just got a great win and something amazing's happened and I want to share it with you. When that's happening, that is a major sign of success for the PMO. And ultimately, the value is not challenged. It's not the first function to get cut when things get pressured. If anything, when things are under pressure, the PMO expands. So that's what good looks like. It's a lovely place to be. But what are the stumbling points? Now, the first one is very important. PMO implementation or enhancement is not treated as a project in its own right. The first thing that you do when delivering a piece of change is you ask the question, why? Why are we delivering this project? Why are we making this change? If you deliver the implementation or enhancement of a PMO as a project, you will ask why, and therefore the purpose is established from the beginning. If it's not treated as a project, there's a big risk that the purpose is missed. Leadership not championing the PMO. So either they're not championing it from the beginning, or to the third point, there is a change in leadership without resetting expectations. So it may be that the PMO was championed from the beginning, but then there is a change in leadership, and the new leaders are not on board with the PMO. And suddenly you see this real shift in the support that you're getting, and you feel you're having to prove yourself again. Insufficient budget or resources, again, it comes down to it not being treated as a project. So there isn't enough budget allocated to set up the PMO or enhance the PMO, or there is not enough budget agreed on a BAU ongoing basis to run the PMO following implementation or enhancement. Engage in inexperienced contractors or consultants. So for example, an organisation wants to build, and we would champion this, it goes without saying, a strategic PMO. But the individuals they bring in are tactical specialists. They know how to create a great project management office, for example, and how to create those processes and templates for projects, but not how to establish that golden thread and not how to connect it to wider strategy, enterprise PMO style. Varying or unrealistics of the PMO, that's the just can you requests. Can you just do this? Can you just requests coming through. And suddenly the PMO is taking all these administrative duties on that take them away from that strategic value. Workload consistently exceeding team capacity, again, a can you just request coming through. PMO becomes task-driven, not value-driven. So again, it focuses on what it's doing, not why it's doing it, and it drops that golden thread. If that happens, the PMO can become policing. We've probably all experienced the PMO police. I have, and I've worked in numerous PMOs, and I've been at the hands of PMO police. It's not nice, and it's not nice to be the PMO police either, but it is the risk that you fall into when in a tactical PMO. Leadership bypassing the PMO. So, for example, you have a portfolio entry process, and that has to be verified, and then you go through business case. But actually what you find is that a lot of the projects on the portfolio never went through those steps because someone very senior said this project needs doing and we're going to skip those early steps. Governance and assurance lacking in pragmatism, that's when you become task-driven and also can be referred to as policing. And underpinning all of this, of course, getting stuck in that tactical space. So if you compare these two, what does good look like? And what are those stumbling points? It's not a very nice place to be when you're experiencing the stumbling points, but quite a wonderful place to be when you're experiencing what good PMO looks like with a well-established strategic purpose. So what do we need to do to fix that? If you're finding yourself in that policing space or challenging with lacking of advocacy at that senior level, it starts with influence. Influence where you're able to influence. The PMO needs to be strategic. And again, as I've mentioned, it may not be that you can achieve this overnight. It might be a slow step-by-step journey into that space. But if you can create a vision for the PMO that is, okay, if you're heading up and leading that PMO, where would we love the PMO to be 2 years from now? And if you create that vision and do what you're good at, create the strategy for the PMO, what needs to change within the PMO, and a set of initiatives that will drive you forward to that strategic space, slowly but surely showing that strategic value, then ultimately you will get there. But in the meantime, just really clarify those leadership expectations of the value and outcomes. What is it right now in today's world that the leadership expect of the PMO? And how can you do that really, really well? And if it's not strategic that they want and you are unable to influence it, do what it is that they're asking, but slowly move your space to that. Move your PMO to the space of strategic through effective change management. Do what you're really good at. You're really good at showing others how to do it, to deliver projects. Turn those skills internal. You have the ability to do it because you do it external all the time for others. Turn it into internal. Use change management. Use roadmaps of change. And use influencing in order to get the PMO to that space. Then re-clarify and restate the PMO's purpose and its principles. And that's where you can use visionary language, even if the as-is is not quite where you want it to be. And in order to inform that roadmap of where you want the PMO to be, conduct a gap analysis to identify what's missing. Where are we right now? Where do we want to be? And what's missing? Why are we not in the place of the vision? What is it that we don't have? What are our gaps? And a helpful exercise to get you through that as you stop, start, continue. And as you develop, redefine your scope, roles and responsibilities. And this is important, the next two, because it's demonstrable evidence-based value. Introduce measures such as KPIs that demonstrate value, not activity. So it's not look how busy we are, look what we're doing. It's look what we have achieved. It's outcome-based value rather than the stuff that's happening. And define success measures with an implementation roadmap. So as I mentioned a moment ago, if the PMO is not where you want it to be, what does success look like on each step of that roadmap? Use simple terminology. Challenge yourself when talking about the PMO to really consider if the language you're using is relational. Will people understand what you're saying? My favourite term within the whole of the project management life cycle is go, no go, because it couldn't be simpler than that. Are we going or are we not going? And I love it. I love how simple that go, no go is. And challenging yourself to be as simple as possible with terminology really helps because it doesn't confuse people. Very important. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Do not be a hidden function. Talk about what you do and why you do it and the value it brings as often as you can. Hey, people. So that's covered purpose. People. What does good look like? It goes without saying that a strong PMO is built on strong people. A skilled, trusted PMO team communicates clearly. It influences effectively without in any way being policing. And it solves the problems with confidence so that teams can come to the PMO with challenges, with failures, if they would consider them to be failures, where they've not done maybe what they should have done within the project or something slipped through the cracks, and they can come to the PMO knowing it's a safe pair of hands to really solve that problem. And this is what it feels like. So if you're working in a PMO that has the right people, it feels like a genuine partnership with delivery teams and leaders. There is confidence across the organisation in the people that are delivering. It's a supportive culture, not a policing culture, and a genuine shared understanding of values and behaviours. And this is really important because understanding the values that you want your PMO to advocate for, because ultimately, if you recruit in line with value, the values are what drive behaviour. People behave in a particular way because it's in line with their personal values. And a group of individuals behaving in the same way because they are value-led creates a culture. And that doesn't happen overnight and by accident. It has to be intentional to understanding what the values are that your PMO stands for, and then recruiting and growing the PMO in line with that will impact behaviour, which ultimately will impact culture of the team. What are the stumbling points? So hiring based on technical skill set rather than values and behaviours. So they're really good at what they do, but not how they go about doing it. Or they're just not experienced enough. They're too junior or administrative focused rather than strategic. And yes, you will need some level of junior and admin based because there is still some tactical stuff even within the strategic PMOs, but you must have that real mix across the board. PMO staff lacking confidence, which often comes from not being advocated for. So if they don't feel like what they stand for within the PMO is advocated for, that can influence their confidence levels to challenge or advise. Or overworked PMO teams with unclear priorities. So because the purpose, for example, hasn't been properly established, the priorities are not clear, the can you justs are coming through and people are feeling overworked. Relational and behavioural challenges. So again, it comes down to hiring not based on values and behaviours. Communication skills being poor. PMO seen as policing or restrictive. And I will say, I have come across some people within PMO who, without beating about the bush, see it as a bit of a power trip. They enjoy the fact that they hold the pen on certain approvals. I've come across that. It's not nice. I'm sure we've all come across it. That's not the sort of communication and behaviour skills, behaviours that you want to see within your PMO. Poor relationship management with delivery teams. The important word here is relationship. The PMO needs to recognise it's building relationships with its delivery teams. Because otherwise, the next point happens, which is delivery teams avoid the PMO, and the PMO starts to feel like an outsider instead of a partner for delivery. And ultimately, you start to hear, we don't see the value feedback from delivery teams. And very important is leadership and visibility problems. So a lot of this comes down to the lack of sponsorship or senior visibility of the PMO, leadership not championing the PMO, and again, as we mentioned in purpose, a change in leadership with no reset or realignment. So how do we fix that if these are the people-based issues that a PMO is having? In terms of capability and confidence, again, gap analysis. We'll always say gap analysis because that's your journey, where are we now to where we need to be, in order to build a clear development plan. And consider capability and capacity, ensuring it's matched to PMO maturity. So what is the PMO what is the purpose of the PMO? What are the processes and everything that sits around the PMO? Does it match up to the people that you have in the team? And where there are gaps, look at upskilling the PMO team through coaching, training, and mentoring. Clarify those roles and uplift capability where it's needed. And make sure the support is there to empower the PMO to challenge constructively, in line with strong processes and an agreed purpose. And if the processes are strong and the purpose is well established and well supported, then they can feel confident in constructively challenging. Strengthening relationships and visibility. Increase senior visibility of the PMO through engagement sessions and one-to-one. So find out where that support isn't currently there and why it's not there. have one-to-one sessions if you're able to, and just really build on that to make sure that advocacy is there at that senior level. And again, as I touched on an earlier slide, showcase the PMO's impact through outcomes, not activity. So if you're feeling the value is not being recognised, do a retrospective of outcome-based measures that the PMO has been instrumental to since you were involved, or since the PMO began, if you can go that far back, and start to communicate that and talk about it, and then talk about the vision that you have for the function. And request feedback and close the loop through you said, we did. So feedback is incredibly important in any way that you work, whether it's behaviours, processes, platform, purpose. If you can ask people, what is it that we could do differently in order to better support you and deliver better value? And then when that feedback comes through, action it through a you said, we did approach. And if you can do that on a quarterly release cycle, so people can expect, they know when they'll be hear back from in terms of sharing their feedback, and they also know when process changes might take place. That works really, really well. And then embed healthy PMO culture. Culture, very important. Values drive behaviour, behaviour drives culture. Ensure the PMO role is sufficiently strategic. If it's not, as I mentioned earlier, how do you get there? Make sure the values and behaviours that the PMO stands for are clearly understood. Establish a community of practice to support shared learning. So this is about understanding that the PMO is part of a wider body of change, and how can the PMO create that community of practice to bring everybody together? And this is a big one. Consider if tough choices about roles and behaviours need to be made. So of course, where possible, you would upskill, you would mentor, you would coach. But sometimes difficult decisions need to be made if you've got individuals in there that are not driving forward the right behaviours. And that's on people. Now we'll move on to process. So good process is simple, scalable, and right-sized. It creates clarity, consistency, and confidence without confident oversight, without adding any unnecessary bureaucracy. So when process works well, what does it feel like? Governance supports delivery rather than slowing it down. We always say the governance is there for the change, not the other way around. So where needed, governance is pragmatic. Increased, decreased, whatever's needed, but it's there to support delivery. The PMO has a clear pragmatic life cycle and templates at project level, programme level, to suit the methodology that the organisation is delivering on, whether it's waterfall, agile, anything in between. The internal and external processes are well defined. So internally, how does the PMO operate? And externally, what are the processes that others outside the PMO will deliver in order for everything to run smoothly? So that's your project life cycles, for example. Reporting is efficient and insight-led at all levels, project, programme and portfolio. Teams know what to do, how to do it, and when they need to do it. And decision-making is fast and it's reliable. Because good process makes delivery a lot easier. It's not supposed to make it harder. Decision-making is really key when you've got good process, because you get the information that you need at the time you need it in order to make really effective decisions. But what are the stumbling points of process? So these symptoms show that the PMO is slipped from enabling delivery to actually burdening it. And it can happen sometimes without you even knowing it, and quite quickly. So process and governance frustrations. Delivery teams complain about bureaucracy, policing, controlling, restricting, bottleneck, hindering change. All of those terms are thrown out there against the PMO. Governance feels like it's a hurdle rather than a support. So it's something they have to get through rather than something that they appreciate and find insightful. It's overly complex, and the templates and processes and governance are overly complex. So there's far too many hoops to jump through, duplicating a lot of information. It doesn't feel like it's adding value. I'm not going to say anyone is going to love sitting down and filling in a form. Even the most amazing project manager probably isn't going to love that, but they should find it insightful. Anything that is filled in, completed, that the PMO requests should be insightful. It should start the thought process of certain questions, and it should feel like it's leading them through the what, why, when, how, who questions in order to truly define their change. It should feel like it's asking them the questions that get them deeper and deeper and more confident in the change that they're delivering, particularly early stages, to get that strong foundation ready to build up. What about the reporting? So in a PMO that's struggling with process, reporting takes too long, and it doesn't add the value that reporting should. So it's admin heavy with no insight, or it's inconsistent and it's not clear. So the reports are coming through in different formats. Every project reports slightly differently. There's no consistent aggregating up at portfolio level. Design and adoption problems. So processes are designed for theory, not reality. And this comes back to, again, right at the beginning when we said that if you don't treat the PMO enhancement or implementation as a project in its own right, there is a big risk in this space of processes being right for theory but not reality. Things should be tested. You should go through your own go live process before putting anything significant out there. And again, that feedback loop is really important, so that if it's not working, delivery teams or users of that process have the opportunity to feed back to you in a really constructive way so that it can be changed and really meet the needs. There's inconsistent adoption across projects. This can often happen when an organisation relies heavily on contract and consultancies, because everybody has their own way of doing stuff. So they come in, and if it's not heavily enforced that this is the way we do stuff in this organisation, people bring their own way of doing it, and it immediately introduces inconsistency. Issues are recurring across multiple projects. Some things not working if more than one project are having the same frustrations, the same issues, the same concerns and challenges. Or there's poor change control and risk management discipline. So generally, just the why do we do what we do around change control, risks, dependencies, etc. The discipline of that and the why of that is not effectively embedded. So why would people follow the process if they don't truly understand why, which comes back to your purpose? So how do we fix that if these are the challenges that PMOs are experiencing within the process space? 3 key areas: streamline and simplifying, co-design and collaborate. You see how it's one team mentality, and embed and sustain. So strip processes back to the essentials. We're talking about the MVP, that minimum viable process. Is everything truly essential? Do you really need portfolio entry, high-level business case, detailed business case, a PID, a PDD before you even get into getting approval? Do you need all that stuff? Or could you maybe just have one document that gets updated as the project progresses? Use simple terminology throughout that. Remove any duplicate steps, templates, and reviews. Shift from strategic reporting to insight-led analysis, from static reporting, to insight-led analysis. So not just that this project is reporting red, but why is it reporting red? What do we need to do about it? For example, co-design and collaborate. So this is about bringing in the delivery teams, not doing everything in a silo within the PMO. So get that get the input from your delivery teams so that you've got buy-in from day one. So for example, with that process, with the feedback process, if you let people know what it is that you're changing in that quarter, ask for input. If anybody here has some great learnings that they can share around the change control process, we'd love to have your input, because that's what we're reviewing that quarter. This is especially amazing if you do have those contractors and consultants in, because imagine how much insight they'll have from all the different organisations they've worked in. So engage as much as you can to get their learnings into the processes. If they've been part of the process, they're much more likely to champion it. And it's more likely to be right as well, because they're going to be the ones doing it. Continue to seek that feedback and introduce continuous improvement as part of the feedback loops. And then as part of that embed and sustain piece, implement a clear feedback cycle. We touch on that a lot in these slides. Very important. It's about that communication piece. And then use language such as community of practice and centre of excellence. If you're aiming to be a centre of excellence as a PMO function for delivering effective and excellent change, then call yourself that. And then pull together everybody that's involved in that centre of excellence as a community of practice, so you are one team. And use advocates across teams to encourage consistent adoption. So if you have individuals that are real fans of PMO, use them. Ask them to speak at the sessions when you're communicating out. Ask them to speak to their peers to really advocate for what it is you're doing. And then finally, final one of the 4 Ps. So we've done purpose, people, and process. We're now on to platform. And I do appreciate that many PMOs are not lucky enough to have a platform or a PPM tool. But many of the reasons that they don't have a PPM tool is because they've attempted it and it's failed. Or somewhere along their career, it was attempted and failed. So they've decided it's not a great idea. So many PPM implementations do not deliver the value that they should be delivering. And it's not because there was anything wrong with the intention of needing a PPM, or there was necessarily anything wrong with that tool, albeit it might not have been the right tool for your organisation. So let's understand where it does go wrong. But first of all, what does it look and feel like when you have a good PPM tool? A well-implemented PPM tool acts as the organisation's single source of truth for change. It supports consistent ways of working, automates manual effort, saving huge amounts of time, and provides real-time visibility of progress, risks, resources, and outcome. It can be at project, programme, or portfolio level, or all of them. But when a platform is working well, you get clear, accurate insight for timely decision making. Reporting is fast, it's automated, and it's reliable. Data standards are consistent across all projects. Teams understand and use the tool with confidence. That's a big one, because often these things are rolled out and then people don't feel confident using them. Dashboards highlight insight, not information overload. It's the so what of everything that's shared. It should simplify, standardise, and support. It shouldn't overcomplicate. Now, if you have been part of a PPM rollout, some of these will probably resonate with you. So where does it go wrong? Data and reporting issues. So there are multiple versions of the truth. It's time consuming and manual reporting. There are data errors and credibility issues. And reporting takes days instead of minutes. So this is often because of lack of buy-in. So the information that's going into the system isn't accurate. It isn't up to date because project managers or users of the tool are not fully bought in. They're not feeling confident in it. So they're still using their own ways of working, which means multiple versions of the truth. You're having to cross-check a lot. Only half the information is going in there. So you're having to pull some of it from manual, and it's not being used to truly automate because of trust and adoption problems. So stakeholders lack confidence in the information. As a result, leaders do not trust the data they receive. because it's either not right or they're hearing a lot of grumblings across the organisation. It's considered extra work rather than giving them the support, and there's poor adoption as a result of it and an inconsistent use. So this is really poor change management. So you haven't got people bought into the tool. And that is often due to either system failures, so it's not the right tool, or process failures in selecting the tool or configuring the tool. So the tool is purchased before understanding actual needs. It's not treated as a project in its own right. Those requirements, the actual purpose of the tool and the requirements of the tool have not been truly understood. It's a lot of manual reporting despite expensive tools. So you think it's going to do everything that you need it to do, and then it turns out there's some manual elements that sit in the background that were really important for you that are now not automated. It's more complex than you need. So for example, you need a portfolio level tool. You didn't want project managers having to put in every single task. You just want to be reporting up at portfolio level. But this one is task-based. So suddenly it's much more complex and you're asking for a lot more information from the PMs. There is conflicting information included within the tool, or because it's not delivering against requirements, you are having to use spreadsheets sitting alongside it which conflict. And there is a resource risk or status data that ends up out of date or incomplete because, again, it doesn't fit requirements and you're using more than one platform or capability to manage and track. So often, and we forget when going down the route of PPM tools, that actually the people selling as a PPM tool are brilliant salespeople. So you go into the whole process quite clear of this is what we want, and then you get absolutely blown away by some amazing tool that can do so much more than you actually need it to do, and you go down the route of that and end up with something overly complex that you really did not need in the first place. So how to fix that? First and foremost, it must be managed as a project. It must be treated as a project in its own right. So you have to clarify and standardize as much as possible. So clarify data needs before choosing or reconfiguring any tools. So what do you actually need to come out of this tool? What is the data that you need to extract from this tool and why? Make sure you've set clear data standards and ownership rules. Introduce strong data governance and quality checks, and select based on as is as well as future state. So if your function is working really well, you've got some strong processes, but now you want to enhance it with a platform, you want to bring some automation, choose a platform that very nicely aligns with your as is ways of working. But then have one eye on what you want the future to be and make sure the tool adapts for the future as well. If you try and get a tool that will change the whole ways of working overnight, you're going to end up in a really complex space. It needs to be a roadmap of change. Get the tool based on as is. Once everyone's comfortable with working, slowly enhance that tool to get you into an even better space. So assess and clarify PPM tool requirements, reset and simplify configuration to match those real world needs, and remove any unnecessary configuration. That can come later. And work on adoption. Treat it as a project. Make sure you train your users and provide that ongoing adoption support. Automate wherever possible and make sure they're using it where that automation is feasible. Streamline the dashboards to highlight insight over information. Again, simplify. And make sure as a result of that, you're shifting from data collection to enabling decision making. The key takeaway from all of this section is treat it all as a project. Now, that comes to the end of me talking, and it leads us into our group discussion.